Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles. That's the IS-6. I finally went ahead and got it, even though I swore I never would. And like the Pershing, this is another one of those tanks that a lot of you have been waiting for me to review. Now, I said I was never ever going to get this thing, and there were good reasons for that, because on paper, this tank looks like utter garbage. And I'll show you what I mean. I'm not going to do this review the way I normally do my tank reviews, by just comparing the stats in the garage. What we're going to do is we're going to compare this to the other Tier 8 premium heavy tanks. Let's just take a little poodle over to the research tree and pull up the vehicle details of the various different Tier 8 heavies. So there's the IS-6, there's the T-34, here's the Lerva, and just for the sake of argument we're going to pull up the FCM50T as well. And you're going to see why I thought this tank was utter rubbish. So there's the American, there's the German, there's the Frenchie, and here's Ivan. Now, hit point wise, it's at the upper end of the tree with 1550. Only the Lerva has more with 1650. T-34 is 1500, FCM50T 1500. It's surprising that the FCM50T has as many as the T-34, because usually the French thing is they have less hit points than everybody else, so that was interesting. I am probably going to be getting the FCM50T as well, just so I can review it for you too, but for the moment we're looking at the IS-6. Surprisingly, it's the lightest of the four. The French tank is not the lightest of the four Tier 8 premium heavy tanks. It clocks in at 52.2 tons of a 59.9 load limit. The T-34, significantly heavier. The Lerva, obviously a lot heavier. That's, you know, the German thing. But surprisingly, it's actually 2 tons lighter than the FCM50T. Now, the FCM50T does have a monstrously powerful engine, and as you'd expect, the French thing, it is much faster and more manoeuvrable. The Lerva has a more powerful engine, but it weighs an awful lot more, and yet manages to have the same speed limit of 35 kilometers per hour. So that's not promising. The T-34 again weighs more powerful engine, same speed limit, but manoeuvrability and speed was it's not exactly the calling card of the T-34 and the Lerva in the first place. Well, definitely not the calling card of the IS-6 either. With a 700 horsepower engine, even though it only weighs 52 tons, it's not very mobile. I mean, it's not terribly slow, but 35 kilometers per hour. In fact, you know, if you're going to compare this, here's a little eye-opener for you. Let's jump down to Tier 7 and open up the details of the IS, one tier lower. The IS has a 700 horsepower engine too, is 6 tons lighter, and its top speed is 1 kilometer per hour slower. So, bizarre, don't know what's going on there. But despite the fact that this is a bit of a lumbering beast of a tank, it's difficult to complain too much about the mobility. Even though it's not very good, it's not very bad either. So, yeah, fair enough. But then we come to the traverse speed, and oh, wow, that's bad. 26 degrees, that's positively German. Well, it's 2 degrees faster than the Lerva, but, you know, German heavy tanks. Nowhere near as good as the FCM50T, and it's actually slightly better than the T-34. So, yeah, not bad, but only if you're comparing it to the other Tier 8 heavies. 26 degrees traverse is bad. Then we come to the armour, and this is the primary reason why I took one look at this tank and wrote it off as a pile of garbage. In combination with everything else that you've already looked at, none of which is special at all. The armour at the front is only 100mm. The side armour isn't bad for heavy tank side armour, but it's still only 100mm. And the rear armour is crap, but you know, crap rear armour, we expect that on tanks. The turret isn't that much better, 150 front and sides and 100 at the rear. It's got less frontal armour than the T-34 on the hull, And the T-34 is notorious for having crap hull armour. It's got less than the Löwe, and the Löwe isn't famous for having heavily, for being a heavily armoured tank. The gun on the Löwe is the signature of the thing. The armour is garbage. Unbelievably, it's got less hull armour than the FCM-50D, and it's French. What the hell's going on? The turret is just distinctly average. The side of the turret is all right, I suppose. 150mm thick is pretty good for side turret armour. But 150 at the front, 100 at the rear. 100 at the rear is actually not bad, but it's still only 100. Obviously, the turret armour at the front is nowhere near as good as the T-34. It's 279, but that's the calling card of the T-34, that monstrous frontal turret armour. It's only marginally better than the Löwe, which is crap to begin with, and it's only marginally better than the FCM-50T. So, what exactly does this bloody tank have going for it? If the armour's crap, the mobility's not good. Well, the turret traverse is pretty shit as well, 24 degrees. 1 degree better than the monstrously slow-turning turret on the Löwe. Obviously, the French tank, again, beats them all with 36 degrees. The only one it's better than is the ridiculously slow turret traverse of the T-34, which is one of the slowest turret traverses in the game, 18 degrees per second. Even its view range is garbage. 350 metres is worse than all of the others, and it's pretty poor for a Tier 8. But the kicker is the 440-metre signal range. It has one of the worst radios in the game, and just that is appallingly bad on a Tier 8 tank. So, even compared to the other Tier 8 premiums, it's not looking very good at all. And just from looking at the stats, this is the reason why I said that this tank is crap. I am never going to get this tank. Well, what about the gun? Maybe it's got a really, really good gun. Nope, it doesn't. The gun of every other Tier 8 premium is better. In fact, it's not that much better than the gun on the Super Pershing, if indeed it's better at all. I'm not even going to bother comparing the gun to the other Tier 8 premiums. It's your typical Russian 122mm gun with a crappy rate of fire, 5.13 rounds per minute. God-awful 175mm of penetration. It's got good damage, 390 alpha damage is pretty good. The accuracy is awful, 0.46, and the aim-in time is abysmal, absolutely horrible, 3.4 seconds. It's your standard Russian 122mm gun. They're all like that, from the KV-1S all the way up to the gun that you grind out with on the IS-3 and even the IS-4. That's the gun. It's just bloody awful. So, what on earth would possess somebody to spend 11,800 gold on this tank? Well, there's a lesson you can learn here. Stats are deceptive. The numbers are not everything. Because what the raw stats don't tell you is the sloping and the angling on this armour. Now that might only be 100mm thick at the front, but look at the angling. That's sloped back at 60 degrees, like everywhere. And I left my slide rule in my other pants, but I'm reliably informed that if you slope your armour back at 60 degrees, you double the effective thickness. So that's actually 200mm thick. And with that amount of angling, the front of this thing is not far away from being an auto bounce zone. I think 70 degrees is the point at which shots are automatically going to bounce unless they overmatch. And you're not going to overmatch 100mm of armour. And it's barely 10 degrees away from being an auto bounce zone. So it's not going to take an awful lot to just bounce every single shot that gets fired at the front of the hull of this thing. The armour cheeks at the side are incredibly well sloped too. Look at that. Look at that angle. That's just... You shoot at this thing from the front, if it's facing straight on and you hit that or that, they are never going to penetrate. It's going to bounce off every time, both those cheeks. Even if he's pointing the cheek straight at you, there's a bloody good chance it's going to bounce anyway, just because of the amount of slope. Look at it. Even the sides, which I hasten to point out, are 100mm thick. It's got some of the thicker side armour of any tank in the game. They're sloped back at 45 degrees, so the effective thickness of that is well over 100. It's got this little skirt on the side, which I think even acts as spaced armour. Not very thick spaced armour, but some spaced armour nevertheless. And of course, you've got the tracks behind that as well. So shots at the side are, well, it's got that whole tracks eating up shots without doing any damage thing going on as well. Rear armour doesn't look too good, only 60mm thick. But again, practically an auto bounce zone here and here. And look at the sloping. Again, 60 degrees sloping, even on the rear armour. That's the effective thickness of that, you're probably looking at 120mm. The place to shoot this tank in the ass is here, where the sloping isn't nearly as good, and the armour also probably isn't nearly as thick. I don't know the exact figures, but that's where you want to shoot an IS-6 from behind. Or even the back of the turret. And it's not... I mean, the turret isn't bad at all, but it's not that rounded, and it's not that sloped. The thickness is okay. I mean, 150mm isn't bad, and that's not just the front, that's the sides too. Obvious weak spots on the turret? Well, there's these two hatches, but they're not very big targets. They're very, very low profile. Look at that. You need to be pretty bloody accurate or pretty bloody close to put shots through those. So, despite the fact that, on paper, the armour of this thing is garbage, in actual fact, it's pretty damn good. And that's been my experience of driving this thing. This thing bounces shots like you would not believe. And that's why people get IS-6s. And it needs that armour, because the gun, unfortunately, is utter garbage. You have to get up close and aim for and hit weak spots with that gun. But it's a very, very, very good tank for doing it. The other good thing about this tank is it gets enhanced matchmaking. You'll never get into a tier 10 game with this thing because of that shitty gun. It's just not good enough to be shooting at tier 10s, even with gold ammo. Let's have a look. 217 penetration with gold is barely acceptable. Shooting at tier 10s, just no. But you'll never have to, unless you platoon with somebody who does get matchmaking in tier 10 games. So there's that. Now, equipment fit. There's good news here. The IS-6 will actually accept a vertical stabilizer. There's not every tank in the game can fit one, and generally speaking, if your tank can fit a vertical stabilizer, it's probably a good idea to put one on. That extra 20% to accuracy during movement and turret rotation, it's not just 20% to accuracy. Well, it is 20% to accuracy, but what it means is that your aiming circle starts off 20% better all the time. So the whole monstrous 3.4 second aiming time is actually 20% better, which is better than the 10% to aiming speed, which only kicks in after you stop moving from an enhanced gun lane drive. Best of both worlds, fit an enhanced gun lane drive and the vertical stabilizer. There's certainly a case to be made for putting improved ventilation on, because that's going to give you 5% to all of your crew skills. So loading time, aiming time, it's going to help the driver, it's going to help everybody. But definitely vertical stabilizer, gun rammer. Third piece of equipment, well, enhanced gun lane drive or vents, in my opinion. When it comes to crew skills are mostly irrelevant on the IS-6 because it's a premium heavy tank. And what you should not be doing with premium tanks is buying a crew and putting the crew in them and training them up on that tank. You're wasting money. And this is why I say crew skills are irrelevant for premium tanks of any class or description, because you don't put your own crews in them. You take crews from other tanks and you put them in them, because crews from other tanks can go into premium tanks of the same class and nation without having to be retrained. And this is one of the main reasons, other than the monstrous money-making potential that these premium tier 8s have. But this is one of the main reasons why people get the premium tanks. What I have done is, you will see, my IS-4 is crew incomplete. Where are they? Well, they're all sitting here in the IS-6. There we go. Commander Heavy Tank IS-4. IS-4, IS-4, IS-4. Notice the text on the crew pop-up. This crew member is not trained for the IS-6. However, he can use his skills and perks because he's on a premium vehicle of the right type. So basically, because the IS-6 is a Russian heavy tank, and the IS-4 is a Russian heavy tank, I can take the IS-4 crew, of whom there are 4, and put them in the IS-6, which has a crew of 4. And I don't have to pay to retrain them on the IS-6. I can just take the IS-6 straight out into battle, get my daily double on the IS-6 for double crew XP, then put the crew straight back in the IS-4, take the IS-4 out, do my daily double in the IS-4 for crew XP, for the double crew XP for that daily double, and bingo, my IS-4 crew has earned the daily double twice. And if I was feeling really, really generous, I could then take them and put them in the KV-5. Same deal. And get another daily double. And then I could put them in the Churchill 3. And get another daily double. And I could get 8 times crew XP every day for my heavy tank of choice, as long as it was Russian. And that's one of the reasons why everybody loves their premium tanks. That, as well as the amount of just money these things can make. So let's have a look and see how we played. Now, this is actually the second game that I played in the IS-6. My first game was actually a victory, but it wasn't very good. I mean, I got 2 kills and then I died. And it just wasn't a very interesting match to watch. This was a much better game and a much better summary for you guys on YouTube of how you can expect this tank to perform. Now, we already know the gun is garbage, so I'm going to present this replay in external camera view, so you can see the bouncers, you can see the armour of the tank. Now look at the team lists. It's a tier 9 game, but there's only 3 tier 9s on each side, and almost everything else on both teams is a tier 8 heavy tank. Look at that. We've got a T-54, they've got a WZ-120 and a T-54 and a very, very unfortunate looking T-43. One Hummel on each side, and that's it. Everybody else is heavy tanks. So this is going to be a fantastic demonstration of how this tank can perform. Now, I saw we had Muravanka, and I was just waiting for half the team to go rushing off to camp in the Magic Forest, and this team didn't do that. This was actually a decent team. So I've got that to be grateful for. And here we go. We've got a good strong force of tanks, including our tier 9. In fact, both our tier 9s, T-54's up there as well. All coming round to this corner. What am I talking about? All 3 of our tier 9s. There's the IS-8. And we got some strong opposition down there too. So this is going to be a test of the tank's capabilities. And don't forget, these are all at least tier 8 heavy tanks shooting back at me. And there's a bounce. And that was probably, I think that was either from a WZ-120, which is a tier 9, or a T-34. And I put a hole in the T-34, and there's another bounce. Now, I'll pause it here for 2 reasons. First of all, look at the bounces. Gun mantlet. And actually, that was actually really lucky. Check that out. Right there. Whoever that was shooting back, and it probably wasn't the T-34. T-34 would have been accurate enough to hit that. Well, it might. Anything can happen. Probably the WZ-120. They actually aimed for these hatches on the top and hit, but just didn't hit square on. It actually ricocheted off the side, so that was actually quite lucky for me. But here's the other thing. The reason I'm pausing it at this point. Have a look down there. That's a cluster of 5 heavy tanks. And those tanks are pointing their guns at these 5 heavy tanks. So they know they're there. Now, if you were driving a Hummel and you were on the enemy team and you saw a cluster of 5 heavy tanks, you could lob a shell over in just the general direction of these guys. You wouldn't even have to wait to fully aim, and you'd be guaranteed to hit and damage something. At least 1, maybe 2, maybe even 3 of them, depending on where the shell hits. Or would you fire at Jingles? And I swear to God, right at this exact moment, I was looking down there and thinking, no, I'm not taking the chance, and started dodging. Because I just knew that was going to happen. I swear to God, you couldn't make this shit up. This is what it's like being me. I'm special. Anyway, oh, hello, Mr. KV-5. Oh, that one looked like it ricocheted off the side of the R2-D2 machine gun turret. I see a T-54 coming up, and I already know artillery's not interested in killing anybody but me. So let's not be brave. Artie's now shooting at the T-54 instead of that massive cluster. Just the mind boggles sometimes, it really does. And I was going to... No, actually, if you're going to make it easy, I will take the shot at the machine gun turret. Now our T-54's taken a battering, and I can help. It bounced. Did the shot go wide? I don't know, but I just bounced off. Well, bouncing a shot from a KV-5 isn't exactly difficult. But now that was surprising because it looked like the shot actually went wide, but it still penetrated. And now the T-54's just gone around the rear, and I think I saw a T-43 go around there as well. But what's this KV-5? Is this brave or stupid? 100-ton tank going downhill at 40 kph. Unfortunately, you picked the wrong one to ram. The Lover weighs 93 tons. He doesn't weigh a lot less than you do, so you didn't actually do that much damage to him. Ah, great. Fired on the move, and by some miracle, hit the T-54, go to ram him, but I'm only a 50-ton tank. Now I've got T-43 on my flank. But I've hardly taken any damage. Another bounce from the T-43. Dissuade him of the foolishness of his actions. T-54's been hit. I'm about to reload. Sense blood in the water. From that range, even this gun can't miss. T-43 fires again. All he does is blow my tracks off. And then he's running for it. And I managed to get another one into him before he gets away. He's now not feeling very clever at all. Four hits received. Actually significantly more than 4 received, but only 4 damaging shots taken. And 2 of those were just minor splash damage. Tiger 2 here looks to be mostly stock. He's definitely got the stock turret. And he's not moving very quickly at all, so probably doesn't have a very good engine. No, I'm not even going to waste my time firing at that. That's just not going to penetrate, not the front of the T-34's turret. Then again, he doesn't seem inclined to be shooting back at me either. Now that T-34, aim, and it misses anyway. Aiming for his hull, and it just didn't go through. 175mm of penetration. Lousy accuracy. And I do take another hit. But that one bounces. Where did that one go through? Oh, it's difficult to tell from here. But hey, look, artillery shooting at me again. T-34 misses. That's going to cost him with his reload. Come on, Mr. IS-3. Unfortunately, 175mm of penetration. You're going to get bounces from the front of IS-3s. And that was unfortunate. And there's artillery firing at me again. I mean, seriously, dude, pick on somebody your own size. So I think that was 1 from the IS-3 before he went down. But that's alright. This tank has taken a battering. I mean, it has taken an absolute pounding. And I've killed a T-54. Inflicted grievous damage on a KV-5 and a T-43 and a T-34. I'm feeling pretty good about myself at this point. And the team's done well. The team has done well. A Conqueror over there, but I don't have a shot at him. And you know what? At this point, I really didn't give a shit about the Conqueror. I wanted to kill that bloody Hummel. And this is one of those rare occasions. It doesn't happen very often. But every now and then I get my wish. Fuck you, fatty! Got him. But you remember I said, screw that Conqueror. Oh, balls. Yeah, that was the Conqueror. But that ended up being quite a comfortable win. And it was a good run out for the IS-6. So let's have a look at the post-battle results. And you can see just exactly how well we did in that game. So, my second game in the IS-6. The first game wasn't that good. It was good enough to get Mastery second class. My second game was pretty good. Good enough to get the first class Mastery badge. And it's a tier 9 game. Tier 8 premium heavy. By far the most XP on the team. Look at that. Spot and damage. 458, 182, 556. That helped. That certainly helped. But, I mean, I still did. With that garbage gun, over 3,000 damage. And the score, nearly 2,000 XP, is not doubled. This was my second game today in the IS-6. Won the first one. Second class Mastery badge. And there you go. And look at that. 108,000 credits. Oh, yes, please. More of that. Thank you very much. And the team just played better than the enemy team, but it enabled me to look good. But you know, I think I certainly put enough effort in myself. Just a shame that Conqueror took me out at the end. And regarding the god-awful .46 accuracy of the gun, don't use it to snipe. Don't. 16 shots fired, 16 direct hits, 100% hit rate. Of course, only half of those penetrated, because you only have 175mm of penetration. And I was clutching some of those shots as well, but still, 3,000 damage done. Can't argue with that. And over 1,000 detection damage. So, wow. Yeah, not bad. And looking at the armour, this thing only has 1,550 hit points. Potential damage received, 4,130. So, if I'd survived, I may as well... 15 hits received. I'd have probably gotten steel wall. But the Conqueror got lucky. So that could have been... I mean, that was a good replay. That could have been an amazing replay. So, summary time. Probably not going to come as a great surprise to any of you that this thing's getting 2 thumbs up from me. And if nothing else, it's an object lesson in proving that you shouldn't believe everything you read in the news. If you were in the market for buying a premium tier 8 heavy and you didn't know anything about any of them, and you just went to the Tankopedia on whatever your World of Tanks portal page is, whether that be North America, EU, Russia, Southeast Asia, whatever, and you just compared the stats, like I did at the beginning, of the 4 different tier 8 premium heavy tanks, you wouldn't give this thing a second look. You'd look at the gun, you'd think, that gun is shit, and you'd be right, the gun is crap. And you'd think, well, it must have something good going for it, and you'd look at the mobility, which is average. You'd look at the armour, which on paper is crap. You'd look at the view range and the signal range, and you'd think, this tank is rubbish. This is a rubbish tank. It's made completely of poo. And you wouldn't even consider spending... how much is it? Let's have a quick look. 11,800 gold. Just no way. No, not a chance. But the stats don't paint the full picture. You have to get the thing and look at it. And look at it. I mean, look at the sloping of the armour. That is just... This thing bounces shots like you wouldn't believe. It is one of the most ridiculously tough little tanks I have ever played. You are going to be getting so many steel walls on this thing. It is just absurd. And that's why... Well, that's why you come to YouTube and you look for reviews of tanks before you put your money down on the table. And you know, I'm really, really glad I got one of these. And I'm sure you will be too. And if you are in the market for a tier 8 premium heavy tank, especially if you already have some Russian heavies, this is a no-brainer. Get an IS-6. You won't regret it. This is a really, really good tank. But don't just take my word for it. I mean, this is why I'm putting these videos up. I'll present the good points and the bad points of the tanks. And just because I like a tank doesn't mean you're going to like it. Have a look at the review. Have a look at the way it played. Bear in mind the good points, the bad points. And if you think this sounds like your kind of tank, it's 11,800 gold well spent. So, there you go. The IS-6 Russian premium tier 8 heavy tank. As always, take care on that battlefield, and I'll catch you next time.